Hey everyone, it's Andrea, and welcome to Scenes Out of Place. If you don't know, I have a short story book called Scenes Out of Place, where I have multiple stories that feature zombies, dragons, and surviving in space. And there are a couple more ideas that might fit into those worlds, but don't necessarily need a whole new book. So I'm bringing them to you in an audio edition. So sit back and enjoy some of the stories that didn't make it to the final edition, but still need to exist. For the last month, if I can be honest, I didn't know if I was going to continue this. I have gone back and forth trying to decide, should I move forward with this story? You see, after I posted the first episode, nothing really happened. I don't know what I expected, but I think maybe I thought I would receive an influx of messages from people all saying that they heard it too, that they had heard of Blue Crab Cove, that they knew exactly what I was talking about, that this was just some big conspiracy that was out there and I wasn't alone. But that didn't happen. Nothing really happened. Nobody threatened me. There were no dramatics from my family. Nobody showed up at my house. So I wondered, should I even keep going? And by that, I mean posting this mystery. Because this is a family mystery. Should I keep it under wraps and work on it privately? Because this story, this mystery, is not a joke to me. It's not some fantastical story. It's something that I know is true. Because the stories were never these fantastical, extraordinary stories. There were no big events. She never described the ocean as almost singing to her. There were no musicals. No, she remembered Blue Crab Cove as her home. Not a fictional utopia where she never went to bed crying, she never got in trouble. She had homework. She remembered the ordinary things. She remembered her routines. Waking up in the morning, watching the sunrise. She remembered smelling the salt air. She remembered walking to school, dreading the days when she didn't have her homework done. She remembered walking the pier with her friends and walking the coastline. She remembered helping her mother do laundry, helping her father clean up his equipment after coming in from the fishing boat, dinner at 6, helping her mom cook and clean, doing her homework, yelling at her brothers when they tried to steal something from her room. She remembered an everyday life, not some fantasy. One thing that she did remind me about were the festivals. The town of Blue Crab Cove held a celebration twice a year, their festival, just like any other small town. Again, there was nothing fantastical about the story, but I never really thought she was alone. I felt like I always assumed there were others who knew the town existed, who also weren't there when it disappeared. I thought there would be other relatives, people who would reach out that I could connect to. I thought I would post episode one and there would be an influx of messages and reach outs and direct messages from people who would tell me they knew exactly how I felt, that someone in their family, that they had an aunt or uncle who also was from Blue Crab Cove, that they also had a grandparent, a distant relative, or they remembered a story from their childhood, something that would say there's more to this story. I severely underestimated all of it. So, not really knowing where to go next, I went back to her journals and I started working on this episode because there was one thing in one of the journal entries that caught my attention in a way it just hadn't before. Her mother, my great grandmother, was named Blue Crab Cove's seasonal queen. It's a title given to high school seniors, and it was a title that my grandmother wrote that she had always wanted one day. And that got me thinking, a festival that had titles like that, sometimes other small towns would write about that. So I did what any searching millennial in this time would do. I Googled. I Googled Blue Crab Cove seasonal queen. It was supposedly a historic crab festival, and I don't know, I didn't name it, but it was there. And because I knew other towns would cover other small towns' events, there had to be something, hopefully, around the word seasonal queen, right? So I searched and I Googled, hoping for a newspaper article, old festival announcement, anything. This time I wasn't searching for just the town, I was searching for events. But nothing came up. Not wrong results, not unrelated results. Nothing. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't know that could happen with Google. So I broke it down to just crab seasonal queen, blue crab seasonal queen, coves seasonal queen. And something happened. And for just half a second, if I blinked, I think I would have missed it. There was a result. Just one. For maybe a few seconds. And then it disappeared. And again, I didn't know that was possible. Do you guys get that? There was a result. A result that came up and then retracted itself. Like the website was actively keeping that knowledge away. But in that time, I was able to read a headline: Seasonal Queen Crowned. There was a record of it. Now, I didn't get the year that it was posted, but it had to be early 1900s. My grandmother was born in the 1920s, so it had to be sometime then, right? I tried searching again, the same thing as before, and it came back blank. But I know I saw it. I'm not crazy. There's a record of the words seasonal queen that is being hidden. But I didn't really know where else to go with that. Where do you start searching when results are being hidden? I needed to get off the internet. I needed a paper copy. I needed to go to a library. But where? Local libraries don't house all newspapers ever posted, right? Do they? I was feeling a little crazy trying to figure out my next steps when I got this email. And when I tried to respond for more information, it bounced back. The address no longer existed. It only existed just long enough to send me an email. Because of that, I'm keeping the address private, just in case they want to reinstate and come back. But the email itself said, keep searching. So that must mean there's something out there for me to find, right? Someone else knows about Blue Crab Cove, and they want me to keep my search going. But there was something about the sender's name that led me to a small town called Henderson Village. And after consulting a map, Henderson Village is a small town that is about 15 to 20-ish miles south of where Blue Crab Cove should be, according to my grandmother. So that was only about a 3-hour drive from where I am. It was time for me to take a day trip. Henderson Village wasn't that far away. So, after ensuring I knew the route, had it in my GPS, downloaded for offline mode, shared my location with multiple friends and family, and I started on my way. Guys, it's a beautiful drive. Absolutely, positively a beautiful drive. To be able to drive up the coast like that, to see the endless horizon, to see the fish jumping up out of the water just slightly, it's an experience. I rolled down the windows in my little Mazda and I could just smell and feel the sea salt air. It was beauty in a way that I don't know how else to describe. It's a wonder. It takes me back to what my grandmother must have experienced when she was a child. Did she get to see this every day when she would wake up and go on the porch? Did she watch the sunrise and sunset? She always said there's something just so calming about the ocean. It's definitely scary, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things in the ocean that I don't ever want to meet face to face, but it's beautiful, it's calming, it's strong, it's mysterious. It's so much. And for that last hour between where I live and Henderson, I was just in awe of the beauty. That coastline, untouched, unmarred by man, still in its natural being, it's beautiful. I actually had to pull over once. There was a scenic look point that came up and I just parked my little Mazda there and I took a quick lunch break and I just stared out at the ocean for like 30 minutes. I might have wasted some time, but I felt like it was worth it. Part of the story. But all too soon, or maybe not soon enough, I made it to Henderson. The town is actually really cute. It's like out of a storybook. There is a main street where all the other streets branch off of. I saw a coffee shop and people were sitting outside drinking their coffee. Um, I saw families walking together. I saw people walking their dogs. People were actually playing frisbee at the park. Like people still do that. It's adorable. Honestly, it made me wonder if Blue Crab Cove still existed today, somewhere out there. Did it feel like this? Did it look like this? I hope so. Oh, I hope so. But I was here for a mission. I couldn't be distracted by the beauty. So I found my way to the library. It wasn't that hard. It was one of the biggest and oldest looking buildings in town. There was a small old staircase, and then there was like these stone columns outside of it, and these big, beautiful wooden doors that, when I got close to it, looked like they were hand carven. And seeing the rest of this town, they probably were. The inside was massive. It was 2 stories high. and there were rows and rows of books. I don't know what I was expecting when I came in, but not this massive, amazing building. It was crammed with books and maps and encyclopedias. It smelled like knowledge. Can things smell like knowledge? I don't know. And that's where I met the librarian, Miss Anderson. She told me she'd been the head librarian for the last 15 years, but she had spent her entire life in Henderson Village. She knew everything there was to know about their small town. She was third generation Henderson. Not that that really mattered to me, but it's a nice fact. I told her I was doing a report on the history of local festivals in small towns, and I wanted to look through some old newspapers to see if the Henderson Village archives could provide any insight. Her eyes lit up when she saw that I wanted to touch something tangible and not just use the internet. She showed me exactly where I could go and look through old records, and 4 hours later, dozens of newspapers later, of small microfiche and looking at it on a computer, nothing. Not a single mention of Blue Crab Cove, a seasonal queen, crab queen, nothing. I couldn't find anything in any of the newspapers from the 1900s to the 1920s that said anything about Blue Crab Cove. So I sat back and thought, maybe I got the email wrong. I could have just read what I wanted to, and maybe there was no clue in the email. I don't know. I didn't know at the time. I mean, I'd been there for hours and I had literally nothing in my notebook. No leads to follow up on, nothing to cross check, just no single mention of Blue Crab Cove. Did I see what I wanted to see in the email address? It was all too specific, in my opinion, to be random, but I am new at this investigation thing. So before I left and drove home with my tail between my legs, I stopped by the table to ask Miss Anderson a question. I asked if Henderson had ever had any fishing festivals. Nothing too unusual. They weren't completely on the coast, but that didn't mean they couldn't have had one. And they had. She listed them all off. They had their Founders Day, the Crab Boil fundraiser, the Harvest Festival, but none of them had a title in it that would be called Seasonal Queen. So I asked, I'm looking for a festival where there is a seasonal queen. Does she know any festivals like that? And for the first time, she looked stumped. Not long, maybe half a second before she asked me, what did I mean? So I told her I'm looking for a specific festival, and one of the titles that were bestowed on a winner was called the Seasonal Queen. Something from a town, and I will be very proud of my acting. I tried to make it seem like I was trying to remember the name. Blue Crab Cove. Did she ever hear about that? That hit the nail on the head. She stared at me for a hot second and then laughed a little. It wasn't really nervous. It wasn't really fake. Just like I had said something very funny, but in a surprising way. And she told me she'd never heard of a town or festival like that. Then she asked me where did I hear that phrase? And I just said I saw it online and I wanted to know more about it for my research. And she just looked at me for a moment and just said it was odd and that maybe I misunderstood. And I asked, why did she think that? If I misunderstood, what was the truth? She stared at me again for a long moment. And then she said, my grandmother used to get mixed up and used to say things like a seasonal queen when really she meant our harvest queen. Henderson Village had harvest queens, not seasonal queens. But you harvest with the season, so she always thought that's why she got mixed up. But what she said struck me like lightning because she said her grandmother talked about seasonal queens, and she always just thought it meant harvest queen. She said that her family had been in town for 3 generations. Technically, I am the third generation of my family in my town. It seems about the same time her family moved to Henderson, my grandmother moved to our town. Was that a connection? Hmm. I tried to press her more on it to ask where her great grandparents were from if she was 3 generations in, and she said they never told her, just left their old town and wanted a new start. And then she walked away. Totally normal. Except she left something behind. The next piece of film that I should have looked at, a newspaper clipping from 1899. She didn't say anything. It was just there, like she forgot it. So I sat back down and reviewed it. It was a small article, no big headline, no author attributed to it, just a couple of sentences buried in some notices that visitors are reminded to avoid the northern shoreline until the seasonal celebrations conclude. No location, no explanation, no follow up, just the northern shoreline. Henderson Village is 20 miles south of where Blue Crab Cove should be. And that is where I stopped feeling like this was a coincidence. What is a warning not to venture out until celebrations are completed? Why would there be a warning about not going to a town while they're celebrating? It doesn't make sense, but that's all there was. I tried to look at other years, focusing on that month and week to see if any other warnings were there, but there were none. It seemed they were all scrubbed, except for this one. So now, I think I need to have another conversation with my grandmother. Why would there be a warning in another newspaper to tell people not to come to Blue Crab Cove while they're crowning their queen? What is a seasonal queen? And did that have something to do with why the town disappeared? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of Scenes Out of Place Audio Edition. I truly, truly, truly hope that you're all enjoying this because I'm having so much fun creating these. It is scratching an itch in my brain that I've had for so long. But it does take a lot of time and effort to make these episodes. So if you would like to help me or support me, you can take a little gander over to my Patreon page and sign up under author support. For everyone who signs up under author support, your name will be read on the credits at the end of each new episode. Because I want this to be something we all can enjoy, but I might need a little help in doing so. So if you would like to support me, check it out. Otherwise, keep listening and enjoying. And as always, thank you so much for your support.